Coming to you from Orange County, California, this is the Jug Life Podcast with Max Ada and Chad Wesley Smith. Hey everybody, what is up? Chad Wesley Smith here, bringing you another episode of the Jug Life Podcast. I'm joined as always by magnificent Max Montana. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty well. How are you guys doing?
And then our guest today, an old fan favorite of the Jug Life, Dr. Mike Israetel. Michael, how are you this morning?
Chadley, I'm well. Thanks for having me over. Maximum.
Always a good time. So today's episode is brought to you by Soft Serve and SRA Curves. And we are going to be talking with Dr. Mike about just really laying down a good foundation as a beginner, whether that's for powerlifting, for weightlifting, or as you begin your journey of structured nutrition type of things, the way to set yourself up for long-term success. So I'm sure that most of you are very familiar with Mike, but he is the head science consultant for Renaissance Periodization. And you've been just a traveling seminizing.
Ooh, that last one sounds oddly sexual.
Mike's a seminizing machine lately, a seminaring machine.
I am, because I'm no longer in academia, I'm full-time RP, basically like to see myself as a scummier version of a traveling lawnmower salesman, or perhaps a vacuum cleaner salesman back from the 50s, maybe like a sex toy salesman.
Yeah.
So what I have to sell is very inappropriate, but nonetheless I'm dressed very appropriately for it. Like, man, see? What you really need is to spice up your bedroom, see? And
they're like, you're dressed appropriately for selling sex toys? Or
No, just way too, appropriately in general, like suit and tie, but I'm selling, fusion-powered dildos.
See, I heard that at your TED Talk, you wore your Batman slippers.
I did. I should be coming out soon.
Yeah.
It'll probably be out by the time folks have heard this. I wore very nice things, but for the little flavor, little Dr. Mike in there, I wore the Batman.
Sprinkle in a little bit of that Dr. Mike fashion flair.
Yeah.
What you're really known for.
Yeah. I'm known for fashion. This is true.
So last week, James and I went over to this new bar that just opened in Costa Mesa Country Club. And as I walk up to it, me down there, as I walk up to it, I was like, there's a guy in a suit checking IDs at the door. And I was fine, wearing like a nice t-shirt and jeans. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh shit. I was like, James is friends with Mike. He's probably going to be wearing some sort of brown sweatsuit. And he's not going to be allowed in.
Well,
thankfully he's not quite as...
No, he's sharp. James can turn it up. I just can't do it, man. The fancy stuff. Although I do have a tailored suit now. I had to get it for Charlie's wedding.
It would have to be pretty tailored.
It was excessively tailored. They designed it custom, and then when it came back for extra tailoring, they usually ship it to your house. And they were like, open it up, try it on, and then come in to the actual place to get it fitted again. Yeah. They were like, don't even open yours up. Just come back in and we'll fix it. And I was like, right on. So, yeah.
I saw you looking actually quite sharp in your tailored
Thank you so much. Cheers to
with your lady.
Yeah, Charlie's actually a fashion expert, and
Charlie was pretty hipster when Marissa and I were out there for the seminar that JM McCoolahans or something went to. That place was good.
He loves that place.
Yeah,
he knew you'd love it because of your hipster sensibilities.
So what other kind of seminars you got coming up? Travel, things like that.
Yeah. So boy, oh boy, Israel in the middle of December. First time back to the homeland, so to speak. And then if I don't get blown up there, then I will be on to, let's be honest. I actually asked Dr. James if he wanted to come. He's like, nope. Yeah. I was like, yeah, right on. So I'm going there. And then in, March, I'm going to Hong Kong.
Okay.
In February, very likely.
I remember, I think we had gotten the initial email.
That's right. Yep. In February, Dr. Brad Schoenfeld, myself, Menno Henselmans, and James Hoffman are doing a seminar in New York because Menno's coming into town.
That's a Bayesian
bodybuilding guy. Yeah, he's a super cool guy, very, very thoughtful. And just handsome to the point of like why some people look like this and I look like this. Like you, kind of.
Yeah. That's
just
understandable.
born with radical good looks. No one can explain. So, and then fuck, man, we've got in March, what's it called? Hong Kong. We're doing a Euro tour probably in April with Dr. Davis, Dr. Hoffman, and then Australia again.
Yeah, just telling me Australia again.
Yep, and then in June, and then in July probably Europe again with Steve Hall and the gang and Jared Feather, and then I have to go to India in October. Any tips on eating stuff?
Good luck.
Yeah, no, that's what everyone said.
I'm not a big Indian food guy. So.
I like Indian food. I just don't want to die of dysentery or some shit because you eat the wrong street food there, you're like fucking, you're gone.
You come back weighing 165 pounds.
Don't say that, bro. Don't say that.
And you also just released a new book. How much should I train? How much should you train?
Yeah, how much should I train?
Yeah.
What's that about?
It's about how much you should train. Funny you should ask. So it's just a really colloquial way of putting together the volume concepts book, all that stuff we've been talking about, MEV, MRV, all that stuff. We just explained the living shit out of it because it got to the point where I had published so many like informal articles and old blog posts about it that people would ask me the same questions over and over, and I was like, fuck, that's basically where we made the Renaissance Diet book at first. Because clients were like, well, why are you doing this, not that? I'm like, fuck, I gotta write a book. So we wrote the book. It turned out super, super well. James co-authored it, and it just like explains everything in the most basic terms, and then some advanced examples and stuff like that. So I thought it came out super well.
And that book, How Much Should I Train, is available both through the Renaissance Periodization website and Juggernaut. So before we get into talking to Mike about training and nutrition for beginners, we're going to take a quick break and hear from one of our sponsors, SeatGeek. And you are about to hear my masterful, tongue-twisting explanation of what they do. So buying tickets to sports and concerts can be complicated, but there's a better, simpler way to buy with SeatGeek. SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to live events. With SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in just 2 taps. 2. And SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing quite like seeing your favorite team or musician in person, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. I have it on my phone. It's the easiest way I've found to shop for tickets. You can be anywhere in just a few taps, instantly find the seats. SeatGeek actually helped us find tickets to the Ireland versus Fiji rugby game when we were over there. SeatGeek is designed to make your ticket buying experience easier than ever, saving you time and money by searching multiple ticket sites to compare prices and find amazing deals. Give you the most bang for your buck because every ticket is graded based upon their value, so you can find the best seat to fit your budget. Plus, every purchase is fully guaranteed, so you can shop for tickets on SeatGeek with confidence. Make SeatGeek your go-to app for finding the best deals on every type of ticket, from sports to concerts, comedy, and theater. Best of all, Jug Life listeners get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter promo code JUGLIFE today. That's promo code JUGLIFE for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. And with Christmas right around the corner, could be a good Christmas gift.
That's really cool. I usually get my tickets from the gentleman behind the dumpster at the venue.
Yeah.
And he
Actually, that's not
often
the only thing you get
doesn't
from him.
take money so much as he takes other things.
Dignity?
He gives back too, mostly in transmittable diseases. Dignity he does take. If you have any to give.
I guess once you actually go around looking for the guy behind the dumpster, you've checked your dignity. at the
Dignity is
door.
something you don't have to offer anymore. Yeah.
So getting into the topic of training and nutrition for beginners, as someone begins to set up their nutrition plan, Mike, what do you think are some real foundational keys for beginners to concern themselves with? Because there's such an overwhelming amount of information available now through the internet that I think it's easy for beginners to get almost paralyzed by so many different ideas and options. So where do they need to start?
MikeIsraetel.com for all your Ponzi scheme needs. Because when you start a nutrition program, it's up to you to recruit other people to start underneath you. You're now a coach.
Well, you're actually learning. You're buying a license to sell the licenses. To sell licenses.
People would think it's creating competition for you, but it's not, because you're now the king. Just a distribution network. In any case, you get rich.
It's like an upside down funnel.
Exactly, but all the money comes to you.
Yeah.
So if you guys would like, do you want to combine nutrition and training, or do you just want to start nutrition and then finish that and go to training?
Just start talking and we'll see where.
Sweet,
things
perfect. Because here's what I wanted to talk about first, and then give the structure after, is temptations/mistakes that beginners almost all want to make or do make. And let's just talk nutrition and training, because I think a lot of this is very similar. One that I see all the time is what like my dad has called like Napoleonic plans. Like day one,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get shredded up in 8 weeks. I'm just gonna change my life altogether. I'm just gonna restructure my diet for it's completely scientific from just doing nothing ever. Training wise, like I'm just going to hit all these PRs. It's like people who pick up their first barbell and the next day they're looking up local competitions, kind of thing. It's just like I'm gonna my road to nationals. It's
Local,
like
you mean like looking for an entry
right?
form for the
No,
Olympics?
exactly. So it's one of these things where I think a huge mistake people make.
I think that's olympics.org/entry.
Oh, qualified.
There you go. Click. They send you administer yourself doping control panel. The thing is that I think a lot of people, the best advice I can give is as soon as you want to really start, just hold back for a second. And then you can start applying the proper principles. But I think, if you think you're starting out your fitness journey in any capacity, whether it be powerlifting, weightlifting, nutrition, etc., if you think you're starting off too slowly, you're probably still starting off too fast. What do you guys think about that? Like, as far as number of days training a week, as far as like what the organized they want to make their stuff. Like, I don't know, Max, you run an actual gym. Do you just put people on programs day one, or you're like, why don't you come around every now and again and we'll teach you some stuff?
We just start on the most advanced program that the most advanced lifter is doing.
Just
First
grind
thing
them.
we do is you got to cut weight, do a big weight cut, 24-hour weigh-in.
That's the first thing that happens. You haven't even like
day one. That's really we start hyperhydration the first day, really, and get them going. I mean, I think that the whole like Napoleonic plans is a great analogy, but like the first thing is starting the process, learning like how the process of training goes, right? So you've never been to the gym or whatever, you have to learn the etiquette of the gym, come into the gym. Your training is mostly general. It's all, basically like learning how to train, I mean, the diet stuff's not as big a component of what I do, but the same kind of thing, like instill the idea of process orientation versus like, hey, we're going to train for a certain amount of weeks to get some goal at the end. It's like, let's come in, learn how to train, learn the exercises, start teaching the technique, and then apply that process again and again. And you start to see results, take shape, and your technique take shape, and then, go from there. And then at some point they'll be on a more like an individual kind of program for themselves. But initially it's all, here's the beginning process as if you were a kid coming to the gym, day one, whether you start at 20 or 25 or 30, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, a great point about wanting to people going too much too soon. And it kind of ties back to, how much should I train? Idea of minimum volume, minimum effective volume. And if they're as athletes become more and more advanced, usually at seminars when I bring those letters up, and it's like, minimum volume, minimum effective volume. Like, you guys probably don't really give a shit about that because you're not trying to get as strong or, just the smallest increase possible. But as a true beginner, if we're taking someone with 0, then their minimum effective volume is a great
1 set per week.
Yeah. But it is, a minimum effective dose idea is certainly applicable there because it does need to be a longer term process, and it's hard for them to sort of combat their own enthusiasm. But knowing that if I train 3 days a week right now, I can get stronger, and that's going to yield a result for me for a long time. And then I need to add a 4th, and then maybe a 5th, and then maybe a 6th, and then maybe back down to a 5th, and back down to 4 as I become, very, very qualified, capable of inducing a lot of fatigue with those things. And it's so tough for the beginner to have that patience or have that forethought about what they're doing.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that, like, two things. One, that it's somehow psychologically more, like, worthy of them, more impressive if they super commit. Like one too many Rocky movie syndrome, basically. Like, I gotta really commit to this, or else people will think I'm a loser. I just don't have what it takes. And it's like, that's not how training works at all. And the other thing is, people worry that they're not gonna do enough to get the results they want. The thing is that last one we can just completely get rid of, because we all know that training as a beginner yields results even if you do like weighted bands in your basement. Like, you're trying to set up a sex dungeon, but you accidentally got more jacked. So it's one of these things where people worry about, what if I don't get any results? Like, they think, okay, I got to start training hard, like close to failure, lots of sets, like all the stuff you're not supposed to do as a beginner. And they say, well, really, like sets of 3 to 5 reps with like plenty of rest on good technique, is that really going to get me jacked? Yes, because you get jacked from anything. You might as well take this new beginner period, noob gains, and milk it out as much as possible before slamming yourself with a ton of volume, because the results would be rather equivocal. As a matter of fact, direct research shows that the amount of hypertrophy you get from multiple sets of training, like 3 sets, 4 sets, 5 sets per session or per exercise, it compares rather equally to like 1 or 2 sets. There's no added benefit of more volume within the first month or so of training. And then after that 2, 3, 4 months, you see the multiple set programs leave the 1 or 2 set programs behind. So what's happening in that first month? Well, to be technical about it, your maximum recoverable volume is so low, you just exceed it with anything more than 3 sets. And then like 1 is a little bit under training, 1 is a little bit over training, and on that balance they're the same. So why would you put your body through that much more likelihood of injury, that much more sort of proclivity to learn poor technique? You can get the same results with barely nothing. Like, if someone came up to you and was like, here's the deal, you could do like 2 sessions a week, 45 minutes each, and get almost exactly the same results as if you did double that work. What do you want to do? And a lot of beginners are like, I want to do double the work. Shake your fucking dumb ass. Why? Like, and then there's the problem. So, okay, so let's say you overwork, but whatever, you burn more calories, who cares? It's not better results, but like, at least you're fucking doing it. There are downsides to that doing too much approach. One of them is psychological, because it's got to be a process. We were talking about in relation to James Townsend's daughter, right? That keeping the love for the act should be there. If you're like, oh man, 4 sessions a week and you've done nothing before, you're not looking forward to next week. You're like, it's the fucking journey, brother. Gotta fucking commit. And you're looking at Rich Piana memes all the time to try to get motivated. Then it's not a sustainable process. If you fall in love with it because it's just not enough and you're really starting to like it, that's perfect, because that's what's going to carry you forever. So the psychology part, you have to consider, people don't think they're going to burn out. I mean, does anyone think they're going to burn out when they start training? No. People are like, no, I'm going to be great. And then 2 or 3 months later, they just stop coming because they've imposed too much of a load on themselves. And the second really big factor here is, how does doing too much work interfere with technique development in lifting? And that's, here I'll talk about diet in a bit, but like, that's a big deal, because I had the opportunity to translate for Boris Shako and talk to him extensively a little while back, and that'll be out through Omar's channel in a bit. But it's a really big deal, and this is something we learned in grad school from Dr. Stone. Learning technique initially isn't that hard. People are generally good at learning technique first if it's taught well. But whatever technique you learn within the first several months or several years of training, changing that technique once you're pretty strong is so hard that it's by no means clear it even works most of the time. Like, if you inherit a really good lifter, especially if it's a really dynamic, like in a squat, just a different setup can be done because you're still conscious when it happens. But especially in weightlifting, once that bar comes off the ground, nobody's really you're not thinking, okay, second pull, here it comes. It's too fast, right? So you rely on instinct again. And if you learned the second pull transition wrong for 3 years, and then someone's like, okay, we're going to teach you how to redo this. Like, what, in your experience, what's the success rate of even good coaches?
It's definitely a challenge. It's a really big challenge. I think I tend to agree more with Sheko. We're talking about, the initial, whatever you've learned initially, there's definitely remnants of that are probably not going to change as somebody gets more advanced. And then the more intensely they ingrain that with more intensity, it becomes harder and harder and harder. It's actually kind of interesting because in line with that idea, learning technique, when we teach the lift, there's two kind of main ways people teach Olympic lifting. Is one is like this global, you come in day one and we do snatches from the ground exactly, and I just kind of help you through it and kind of, move you around and work you into the position and stuff. And that's like this global idea. The other is like a segmented learning where we break the lift into smaller components.
Top down or bottom up or
and
whatever.
teach each component separately. And there's obviously advantages and disadvantages. The main disadvantage to that global technique is that if you do it wrong right off the bat, you're going to start having these big errors that don't get fixed.
So the coach has to start fighting errors.
Right,
away,
yeah.
basically.
And so you get quicker results, easier, it's faster, it's more rewarding, and it's sort of kind of like the like, oh, it's no problem, I can teach them to snatch in an hour. But later on, what the ramifications of that are. The main benefit of the segmented one I think is neat is you get to learn something new, and you look forward to learning new positions. Like, okay, we're starting at the top, we do these first couple positions at the top, then after a few weeks of perfecting that, we move to the next phase. And you have this structure to look forward to, like, oh, I'm going to like build on this.
Yeah, they get to
thing.
They get to graduate to the
Right.
next position and sort of have that.
Yeah.
I think that the style of teaching there too really lends itself to two different populations.
Mm-hmm.
If you have kids, or you have certainly a long time to develop and trying to develop people into extremely elite lifters,
Mm-hmm.
the global approach will be self-selecting,
Yeah.
and that the people who just see someone snatch and can approximate something close to that
Yeah.
are the people who are going to be good anyways.
Sure.
The people who do not have that coordination, we're probably never going to be good,
Mm-hmm.
really truly elite lifters anyways. But in, the context of a CrossFit class, or strength and conditioning for athletics, that more piece by piece approach is probably much more applicable, much more successful for that application when it's not, I'm going to develop the best lifters of all time.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too, because you look at there's the benefit of that later on is that you've basically taken someone through the educational aspects of all the lifts, all the different special exercises they're going to do later. So if you developed an understanding of the correct execution of, snatch from the hang, snatch from blocks, deficits, and like all these things later on, there's no errors that need to be corrected when someone uses those exercises in the training program. You don't do that early on. They have to, you find people that a lot of times will be, they can snatch and clean and jerk really big weights, but they lack, like they might snatch 160 kilos, but they can only power snatch 110 or 115 because they're just very poor at executing the movement. And that just shouldn't be the case at that level. Right?
It's also a problem when you want to target specific
Right.
attributes.
Yeah, so you're left in,
Your specialization tool isn't powerful enough to affect your strength.
Right.
Well, you're going to have to learn this shit for 6 months, and then it'll finally start helping you.
Right.
Like, that sucks. And especially with elite lifters, when you got competitions coming up, you need to make some changes.
Yeah.
Like, we need to put 2 kilos on your total for worlds. Like, wow, sorry, it's just going to take like 6 months, so you're fucked. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then, it always comes back to, I think it's always cost benefit, right? The whole thing. The benefit of starting out really strong and just doing a ton of work and doing too many sets and reps, too close to failure in any of these endeavors, is that you get like a very fast results at first, and then, that's the benefit. The downside is that you can run into motivational problems. You can run into technique development problems, and you likely will. You can run into burnout problems and injury problems. And the sort of other kind of downside-ish thing is that the results you get from the slow and steady approach, they're just not, are they going to be as fast as the ramrod approach? No, but they're going to be like 80 or 90%. And fundamentally, like, who gives a shit if you're only 80 or 90% as fit as you were supposed to be 2 months after training? I guarantee you nobody who's actually fit or strong in the weight room. Like, I don't know, you ever like, you have like really good lifters lifting with really just beginner lifters. I mean, if the beginner lifter is snatching, we'll just put this in, I guess we'll stick with kilos, right? If the beginner lifter is snatching 70 kilos after 2 months versus 60 that usually everyone does, is the guy snatching 220 really going to notice? Or like a guy snatching 200 really going to be like, oh, wow, hey, fuck, Bob, I thought you were going to be doing 65, but here you are doing 72.5. Holy fuck, man, watch out, my spot on the world team. Like, nobody gives a fuck. The best people don't give a shit that you progressed just that much more quickly at first. And the best people that know coaching also know that you got to fuck yourself over by doing that. So it's one of those things that, like I said, the Napoleonic plans, you got to take beginners and really ease them away from the temptation of doing too much. And be like, there will be a time when you have no idea how the fuck you're supposed to be able to train this intensely and this often. That will be for later. You will already be jacked. You will be in shape. You will be a good lifter. If you want to really set yourself up for really good results in the end, in the long view, you have to do things properly. And that's, again, the thing with dieting. So to bring the dieting into the equation, if you want dieting to be a long-term endeavor that gets you into really good health, and health, by the way, is a matter of dieting properly for 20 years. I mean, dieting properly, I mean eating well properly for 20 years. If you, want to be healthy for a long time, if you want to be really fit or really lean, if you have plans to be a competitive physique athlete or something like that, you don't get there in the first 3 months anyway. So it's fucking pointless. And lifting, it's important to build up good habits. And we did mention that, right? But with diet, habits are everything. I mean, you can will yourself to go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Fine. You're not going to will yourself to eat fucking 6 meals a day for the rest of your life. Willpower is not that powerful. It has to become habitual. So if you rush into things and you don't take time to grow those habits, then you're really setting yourself up for a very short endeavor. And here's the thing. Some of those folks watching this may be skeptical and be like, well, these guys are just really pussyfooting around. I want fucking war. The people that rush into dieting, and there's really good research on this, 95% of the people that ever start a fat loss plan and complete it, we're not talking about the people that start and fall off. 95% of the people that ever run a fat loss diet rebound back to their original weight within 6 months to a year of stopping it. You're almost certainly going to be a failure. And one of the biggest reasons of that is because a diet plan is a diet plan. This is what I'm doing now. I'm putting the rest of my life on hold. I'm eating in a really artificial way that I'm not used to at all. I haven't grown this diet into my life. I just started it artificially. And now it's one of these situations where as soon as I stop it, I don't have any tools or any desire, any motivation to have this as a part of my life. So one of the first thing in dieting, there was a very distinct sequence we've written about in a variety of books. Understanding Healthy Eating, a book. We wrote about the sequence of taking completely people to, people, you guys I'm sure have you meet people every now and again that have no cursory understanding of what the fuck dieting is. They're like, what do you eat the first thing in the morning? They're like, is drinking Mountain Dew a food? And you're like, oh, okay. Like, I actually seen like a construction worker walk in. I remember this like hit me like, this is real. It was like in Philadelphia, a construction worker walked in like for his morning breakfast or something at 7-Eleven, and I was getting like protein bars for later in the day. He had like a Mountain Dew, a stick of beef jerky, and a Snickers bar, and that was it. Like, that was his breakfast for that right then and there. And I was like,
yeah, well, it fit his macros, so
fuck yeah, he was shredded to the. I think he actually cut me walking by me. I was like, started bleeding and shit. I was like, how the fuck are you this ripped? So, this is an individual that you cannot give him macros to hit because he didn't fucking know what macros are. Yeah. He doesn't know he's supposed to be eating well. So in the sequence of introducing people to healthy diet or even contest physique diet, because the thing is, you got to learn how to eat generally well first, and then we'll talk about putting your dumb ass into a physique competition. Like, it's not like, well, I just want to get lean right away. Like, blah, 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 blah. Let's get you eating right first, and then that is the path to. It's like getting good at squatting and pressing and pulling before you start doing all kinds of fancy shit. Like, this shit's not going away. If you're not good at this stuff, you're just never going to be fucking anything. It's like, I think I've seen this problem, and I've talked to some strongmen. Strongman's becoming much more popular now. People come into strongman gyms or to gyms that have strongmen, and they're like, I want to do all the strongman stuff. And they're like, you should probably be getting strong too, not just showing off with shit. And they're like, suitcase carries. Like, that's not how you get strong. That's how you learn the technique of strongman. How much do you deadlift? And they're like, well, that's boring. You're like, yeah, you're never going to be in the world's strongest man. Like, most of the best strongmen, like, won powerlifting worlds or took second place or something. And then eventually someone was like, hey, look at the strongman stuff. And like, oh shit, I'm already like, Zydrunas Savickas, perfect example. Second at IPF Junior Worlds, right? And then when he got to strongman, he knew what's going on. So in a similar way, you got to onboard people with real simple stuff, no Napoleonic plans. For healthy eating, one of the first things you have to get people to do is literally to recognize what healthy foods are, recognize what they're not, and just start trying. No fucking counting, no meal numbers, no timing, none of that shit. whatever meal you have in front of you, when you have choices, just try to make better choices more often than not. And you don't even say like just all healthy food now, because remember that causes burnout. Maybe like 2 meals out of the day. One thing I usually say to people is like, most people have a job or go to school. Say, okay, during the work day or the school day, you only eat healthy. When you come home and you want a little bullshit snack, fuck it, have a snack, right? You can eat pizza and ice cream at night. Nobody gives a shit. So what does healthy eating mean? It means fundamentally eating lean meats, fruits, veggies, whole grains, and healthy fats. Okay? So every meal, it's like, hey, people know what that shit is. That construction worker, Mountain Dew, fucking beef jerky, and fucking Snickers bar. If I came up to him and like, bro, is that healthy? He'd be like, no. The guy knows it's not healthy. So I just don't give a shit, or I'm so busy, or whatever. So teaching people what healthy eating is like isn't even that super hard. It's almost like in lifting. Like if you show a regular person someone like good, like what's that, question mark deadlifting, right? And you're like, is that good technique? Most people intuitively are like, I feel like you should have some stuff straighter and not jerk around. You're like, that's correct, right? Then not like people know intuitive weightlifting technique. They don't know intuitive healthy eating. It's just not that hard to figure out after some coaching. So for a while, all people do is eat, just making healthier choices. But now they have a super powerful weapon. They know where the good stuff is. They know how to build a meal of, I'm going to get my lean meats here, get some veggies and fruits, get some healthy fats, put it together, put it down the gullet. That's it. They know that. After that, then weeks later, now mind you, it's the first intro to healthy eating. They're going to lose weight like fucking super fast. And if they're training, they're going to gain muscle super fast. It's the first time they're eating much better, right? Like if you get a person, especially who's overweight, and you start getting them to replace 2 of their meals with healthy food. Have you guys ever seen like My 600-Pound Life, that show?
I'm familiar.
You've been Your 600-pound life?
Yeah, I have a personal show. It's a YouTube. It's pay only. It's not really. It's a YouTube, but there's like a dot between the T, the U and the T. So there's it's like a show about like super morbidly obese people, and of course they show how they eat. I mean, these people pound junk food like it's their job. You can't continue to weigh 600 pounds if you eat 2 healthy meals a day. Bodybuilders have tried that. Like, I'm currently like trying to mass up eating exclusively like lower fat healthy foods. This shit is fucking damn near impossible. Like, how much more rice and chicken can I eat? The answer is not much. So you get people to eat well, they start getting results automatically. So it's not, I don't want to build this as like, well, it's a preparatory process and then you'll finally start getting there. Like, then you'll finally get results later. The results are happening as the preparatory process speeds up. Once you get people to understand what healthy choices are, later after they're like, there's a feedback system with a coach too. You're like, hey, how's this coming along? They're like, I've got my meals. I know what I'm doing. I get into a Subway. I know what to order. I know there's a burrito place next to my, next to my work, so I can take some healthy options. When I grocery shop, I know what to buy. You're feeling pretty good. Is this feeling like a normal part of your life? Some people, within 2 weeks, they'll be like, I felt like I've been eating healthy my whole life. Some people, it takes 2 months to catch on. And whenever that happens, when there's like a really ingrained part, then you can start being like, right, now we're going to start to count portions. You want a meat slab the size of your hand or something, and grains this big and that big. Then you get them to eat standardized portions, maybe at more or less standardized meal times. So be like, okay, within an hour or 2 of waking up, you should have a breakfast that should look kind of like this, and just general portion stuff. And then you should have a lunch regularly, and a dinner regularly, and then a snack regularly. Like, your snack can be like, just keep it a little bit, not super crazy, but it can be some bullshit food, some junk food. When you get them on a system, that's great. For a couple of weeks or months, they run that simple system. They're not formally counting anything. They're just kind of getting some fucking portions together and being regular. Then, when they go on renaissanceperiodization.com, right, and they download a diet template, it's got times of the day to eat. It's got selections of healthy foods. They already know that shit. They know that shit. And then it just has amounts. Then the only thing they need to learn is how to measure food, which is fucking easy if you know what healthy food is and that you're supposed to be eating it at certain times of the day. But can you imagine trying to start everything all at once? Like, Max, if you took someone in, or Chad, if you took someone in to coach them in powerlifting, or Max, you in weightlifting, and you started giving them every cue as they did their first snatch.
No, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah, wait, that's what I currently do.
Max just says do it better.
That's right.
You're doing it wrong.
You are bad.
It's more important that I'm right.
That's right.
You know they're doing it wrong.
I do it better than this. That's all you ever say.
I think a lot of this goes to the idea, and part of, I know a question that you guys get all the time, RP, is like, well, why isn't there a meal list? Like, I want a meal plan. So,
oh boy.
Yeah, and the food lists are more effective than that because it's easier compliance. but it goes hand in hand with the similar concepts for powerlifting and weightlifting of working from general to specific, from breadth and width to focus. So when they start very early, they're doing these very general dieting things better, and just there's a lot of things that can work for fat guy to go to become slightly less fat guy.
Yeah, or considerably less fat guy, but still fat guy.
But and then the specific items within the nutrition concepts of timing of
exact macro amounts.
Exact macro amounts, timing, and then maybe even more specific food selections at the very, more limited, more focused. Similar ideas to powerlifting and weightlifting success. We need to start off with a wider selection of exercises. Not so many that it's overwhelming and they can't practice any of them. But if it's day one, squat, bench, deadlift only, well, we're gonna run out of tools pretty quickly with that. So I think that's an important concept to understand, that at the beginning, you just need to do a couple of the things of this big, wide range of things, do them well. Mm-hmm. And then you focus more and more.
To that focus, a lot of focus is needs-based. Like James Hoffman always says, the first part of a program, especially for a more advanced lifter, is a needs analysis. Yes. You don't just go in and just start training someone. You have no idea where they're limited. Like if the guy's limited from pull off the floor and you're just having him work off blocks all the time, you're like, well, we just wasted 6 months of training. Like his limiting factor is still the same place it was. Yeah. So a lot of people think like you'll come into the game, whether dieting or lifting, and they're like, well, I need a focused program. Like, motherfucker, you do not need a focused program. You need a general program. Yeah. Focus only develops when you have really big limiting factors. And beginners don't. Everything works for them. Everything is a weakness. Just start getting into the process. Get into it easy with the big stuff that works for sustainability. Because if you can do that, then eventually you you grow into needing focus.
Yeah. That's people asking questions a lot about like what's the difference between a beginner and intermediate, or how do you know you're an intermediate? And I always say what you have is the initial period of training is always about learning the technique, right? And you teach the technique, you learn it, you develop it. Then once the lifter has solidified the technique they have, that's after some period of time, whether that's a year, 2 years, or whatever, then you start loading that and you see where the breakdown occurs. Mm. And when the breakdown becomes consistent, the same error comes up, the same technical flaws exist, then you can identify that the person has moved from being a beginner to being an intermediate athlete.
That is a beautiful definition.
Because then you have a consistency to the execution of what they do. And it's the same error, so it's coming from the same place. You have a weak link in the chain, then your program starts to evolve around that. So.
That's awesome. I imagine a part of the beginner versus intermediate of weightlifting is also like, how do you look with a warm-up weight?
Right.
If you look competent, if a good coach can watch you in a warm-up room and until you start loading heavily, you look like a good weightlifter, yes, you're officially an intermediate. Yeah. If he can immediately tell from your first pull that you're fucking up, you're not intermediate yet, right?
We call it the king of the warm-ups.
That's right.
You go in the back room and you see the guy
fucking
just
set up,
obliterating 50 kilos, 60 kilos, 70.
Yeah.
And inexperienced people will be like, wow, that guy looks really strong. Yeah, then you watch the guy who's going to snatch 170 and 50 and 60 look like they weigh 170.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this guy's, his technique is excellent. He's executing it flawlessly every time.
For sure. That's one of those, in jiu-jitsu actually is a similar thing. How do you know someone's not a white belt anymore and they're ready for blue belt? They can do jiu-jitsu. Like you go to a blue belt competition and people are actually doing moves. Now they're maybe not that good at them. Maybe they don't succeed as much, but there's a process. With white belt that you kind of there's like a lot of white belt competitions. Just out of this. and to an untrained person, like, well, they're fighting. And black belts and everyone else are like, are they really though? And like, it's like two children like running around. Yeah. So
that's what I was telling Max. I try and do jiu-jitsu as much as I can. There are times where I do jug-jitsu, and that's just
roar,
smash.
You gotta freak out.
Yeah, but
once you have ingrained technique so well that you can use all of your strength directed through technique, you're really gonna start to upset a lot of people. That's the culmination of jiu-jitsu is, the stronger you are, the better. and the more technique you can apply. I mean, technique in jiu-jitsu is really simple. It's all just about leverage, right? So if you can leverage an 800-pound deadlift properly, man, nobody's getting out of that shit. Like if you're armbarring, I don't know if you're going to armbar somebody.
Well, this is a topic for another day. Probably.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But I was just going to say, like, if you can pull like hundreds of pounds like this, nobody's going to grasp their hands against the shit. So once you develop a really good technique, all of your strength comes into play at that point. But just like, bringing it back to the weightlifting example.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, if you really rush the strength development and you forget about the technical development, once technique starts to be the clear limiting factor, you've really hamstrung yourself, because you can always, and here's the thing, like this sounds super lame coming from anyone but the three of us, because we're like relatively accomplished, or I mean, I at least studied the shit. You guys have lifted actual weights. I've got a shoulder press. That's all I've got going for me. You can get strong whenever.
Yeah.
Getting strong is not that fucking hard. It's the application of a completely simple process. It's basically physiological. People are like, I've got to fucking will it up to get strong. You just fucking do this. That's it. You'll get strong. Right? Eat protein and do that and you'll get fine. But technique, man, if you already have bad technique like we mentioned, good luck. I don't know. You can't unlearn all that stuff.
And that was so much of a problem that I ran into in my shot put career. And I think that a lot of throwers who are good lifters and good weight room guys have a problem with is that when I went from my sophomore to junior year in high school and my bench went from 250 to 350, something like that, and my shot putting result went from 49 feet to 59 feet, I was like, oh, so I just keep doing this over and over, right?
Sure.
Figured it out.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to age 22, 23, and have these really high general results of lifting and jumping, but not the technique to match it, because you only have so much energy to devote to these things. And I was misappropriating mine, but and it is so much, the more intensely you ingrain any technical pattern, running, snatch, clean and jerk, squat, any kind of jiu-jitsu technique, the more intensely it's loaded, the more deeply it's going to be ingrained, and the tougher it's going to be to fix any of that stuff.
Yeah. And unfortunately with diet, it doesn't even work like that. The good news about diet is if bad habits are ingrained really well, they just burn you out and then you don't diet well anymore. So the good news is the diet, there is not that feedback loop where if you have bad experience with the diet before, it's really going to fuck you up. Unless it was like a disordered eating sort of situation, you're really fine to start any time. And a lot of people fail for 10 years and then finally find something that works for them. But with diet, the temptation to rush the process is enormous. Because if someone says just eat healthy, you'll lose like a pound a week of body fat. Things go well. But if one of your friends goes on a crash diet during that time, they're going to lose, like if you're both heavy, they're going to lose 3 or 4 pounds of body fat per week. They're going to, in 2 months, be like, I lost all this weight. They're going to do the fucking Jared from Subway pants thing. They're like, look at this shit. And, they're going to be, jailed for sexual assault.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's not the only pants thing that Jared from Subway did.
I'm not sure what that means, Chad. Can you explain?
Hashtag safe sport.
Hashtag safe sport, yeah.
I just got an email from them.
Yeah, they're asking for money. They have a lot of investigations going on probably now. So
yeah, I'm like, I have no idea what this has to do with me. How do they find me?
They're probably just asking.
I probably saw a picture of you once, and they're like, let's get this guy on our radar.
This is not good. But yeah, so, the temptation to do a get quick, like fix it fast scheme and diet.
Yeah, that's what I
is
want.
Enormous, man. Exactly. And the thing is like, real talk, I've done this on a couple of podcasts now. I think this is a good message to spread. It's going to sound a little mean, but maybe it's just meant comedically more than anything. Motherfucker, you're not the first person to want fucking results quick. Fuck you. That's my message. Like, do you think you're among the first million? Do you think you're among the first billion people to be like, I want to do a diet with minimum effort that is super sustainable and gives me immediate results super fast? Like, wow, fuck, can I shake your fucking hand? Like, I want a cell phone that's also a lightsaber, but they don't make that shit. So why don't we look at the shit that's available and pick the most logical thing? Like, can you imagine walking into a car dealership and be like, all right, I want something that's as fast as a Dodge Viper, like that 90s reference.
Yeah.
We were like 6 or something.
Oh, that's a phenomenal car.
Unbelievable, right?
Yes.
It looks like a tool of aggression. You see it and you get scared. You never cross the street in front of a Dodge Viper. Even if it's standing there, you just walk around the shit.
Have you ever seen that as like a classified ad and the guy was trying to sell a Dodge Viper?
No.
And he was basically describing it that way, like how scared he was of driving it.
It's yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's, I want a Dodge Viper Speed. I want the comfort of a minivan, and I want the shit to cost $10,000.
Yeah.
The dealership's just going to be like, look, we would really love it if aliens came down to Earth and built that car for us, but the motherfuckers haven't showed up yet.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at, real choices in dieting, you just have to everyone knows you want it all. You're not the first person to want it all, and it's a fool's errand. It's a folly. It's like people sorry to bring up jiu-jitsu again. Chad, I see you doing jiu-jitsu now. It excites me. It's someone's
do you want me to put my pajama pants on?
Well, that would be great. So if someone's
Put some pants on.
right, it's like the black
My
belts.
house will do as I do.
The black belt's teaching a move, and a white belt's like, well, what if I do it this other way? Like, motherfucker, you're not the first person to ask that question. This is wrong for 20 fucking reasons. Yeah. You're not going to outwit everyone who's ever done jiu-jitsu. Certainly not your first day. Do it this way because this way works. Like, would it be cool if you could just go like this and beat everyone or just one little move? Totally, but that just doesn't happen.
That whole concept is a huge issue in the industry of fitness. Is that?
Oh, I thought you meant sort of Southern California. The industry means something else.
Yeah, the industry you're familiar with, but it's like the idea that someone's going to say, "Hey, I acknowledge what you're saying, but I've got a proprietary version of something that's faster, better, easier to do. Here's this detox tea. This is gonna, it's easy because when everyone says the right information, it's not pretty or fun or exciting." So it's really easy to be enticed into this idea that oh, hey, there's a trick, or I've got a proprietary technique and it's called the this and this pull, or the that and this diet.
So are you saying that you don't think it's likely that the 12,000 sports schools of Russia in the last 60, 70 years of weightlifting, that they wouldn't have figured out snatching with bands already?
They didn't. They didn't know about snatching with bands, low bar squatting, different names for different styles of pulls with proprietary names or special.
It never crossed their.
No.
It never crossed their mind.
No.
Huh.
You guys seem to think yourselves clever making all these jokes, but it's funny because you've looked far but not far enough. Here's what I mean: you guys think you make fun of looking down in the squat because it doesn't work. You got to look under yourself. If you it's not down, it's behind. If you look behind yourself, then your squat result really goes up.
Eyes on tape.
People haven't taken it far enough.
I like to look amongst myself as I squat.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
like all around,
No,
or
up
just
my own butt.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I thought you psychologically within yourself and shit,
I
introspection.
close my eyes.
Nice. Why fucking
Problem
take
solved.
cues from the world?
I don't know what I'm looking at.
Who cares?
I don't even know where I'm
I
at.
just yell a lot.
So as we begin to wrap up today, guys, I guess what I'd really like, and it may be cliche, but if there's really just one piece of advice, someone tells you, "Hey Max, I want to start weightlifting on Monday," what is the first, the one thing that you tell them?
The one that is spend time on the process of learning technique. Yeah, learn the technique first, and until that's developed and consistent, then don't worry about the numbers, the weight on the bar. Don't worry about the results. Just worry about the movement first.
For dieting?
Yes, not for weightlifting.
Sure. I was going to say something about lifting in general.
You're Russian, so
that's
it gives
true.
you de facto weightlifting credibility.
Mix, that is nice, but I'm
Whoa.
from Russian sports school. So,
Dr. Mikhail Sportsnitsky.
Sportsnitsnikov. For dieting, when you make your changes, to first eat healthier and then try to organize your diet a little bit and then finally count nutrition and manipulate things on purpose. The big tip is make sure you're comfortable and the changes are habitual before you move to the next change. So just try to eat healthier first and don't count and all this other crazy shit. Just try to pick healthy choices and just eat a couple of them during the day. Once that's just as easy as, but like, Chad, if I let you into a Whole Foods, would you come out with pizza and donuts? Like, if I was like, hey, we're eating healthy, I mean, you'd know what to pick.
Well, it's all healthy from Whole Foods. So.
For sure, including the Reese's cups. That's exactly the same macros as the regular one. It's just a Justin's natural Reese's cups.
Well, they're 3 times the cost. They better be healthy.
That's true. That's true. So it's one of those things where, you're comfortable picking healthy foods. It's not a problem for you. It's not like shocking. It's not like, oh my God, some people when they start out, they're like, okay, eat healthy. They're like, oh God, what does that mean? And they have like a trillion questions. They mean organic, non-GMO. What does it mean? Once you're comfortable eating healthy foods and really it's just not a challenge anymore, then you're ready for the next step. Wait until you're comfortable with each step. Then by, a year in, you're going to be like a dieting machine, and it's just going to feel like you've done it your entire life. Like, people, I eat all these crazy. I was on a plane earlier, and I started eating a sandwich, and I was like gonna give away one sandwich to another guy, and he was like, oh, we started talking, and he's like, do you count all that stuff? And I was like, I count every single thing I eat. He's like, wow. And I'm like, I thought like, wow, that does sound super intimidating to someone who doesn't even know what healthy food is. But to me, I've been counting for so long. This shit is easier. Like, okay, protein, carbs, fats. It's 3 fucking numbers. You put it into your account. That's it, right? So, and how is it so comfortable for me? Because before I got to counting, I just focused on eating well and not counting. I did that in college. I didn't count a fucking thing in college. I just ate mostly high protein, healthy foods. And then eventually, so get comfortable until you go to the next step. And then eventually you'll be doing all the right stuff with minimum effort.
Yeah, I think to kind of piggyback Mike's idea there is you got to do the stuff well, do what you can do well, and do that a lot. And don't be so concerned with the things that you can't do well yet, because you'll get to being able to do them well eventually. So if you're learning how to snatch and clean and jerk, and you can snatch from block above the knee well, and then you go to the floor and everything goes to shit, well, doing a bunch of shitty snatches from the floor probably isn't really going to help what you're doing. But doing a lot of what you can do well, while on the side doing some things that are necessary to improve the part you can't, is going to be very beneficial. If you can't get in a good position to deadlift from the floor, but you can pull well from a 4-inch block, pull from the 4-inch block, and then 3, then 2, then 1, and then you're at the floor. And it may seem like, that process may take, for something that's relatively simple like the deadlift compared to something more complex as the snatch, maybe that takes a month or 2 months or 3 months even for you to get from the 4-inch block down to the floor with good positions. And that seems to you right now to be an eternity. But in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that is a blip, of time, come and gone so fast that you'll never, it seems like nothing. So to involve yourself in the process, to want to get good at all the parts and develop mastery of what you're doing, starts at the very beginning. So don't be afraid to focus on the parts and the smaller, remedial kind of things and become great at them before you try and concern yourself with the bigger picture. Any other beginner ideas you want to talk about?
Man, that was pretty good. And just again, remember that because you're consistent at doing the basics pretty well, you're going to get really good results at first. Noob gains is a thing, and if you haven't experienced it, just start training in the basics. You will get strong training exclusively for technique. And so you don't have to worry about results as a beginner. Like when high-level individuals, weightlifters after 10 years of training, bodybuilders after 20, when you're like, if someone who's been lifting for 3 months is like, yeah, I'm not sure, like, I hope I'm getting stronger, they laugh at you. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You've got the golden age coming up.
I've hit a plateau.
Yeah, like 3 months I've hit a plateau.
My squat hasn't gone up in a week.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was only able to put on 10 pounds on the bar and get the same reps versus the 20 I've been putting on. Yeah. Like, all right. So it's actually funny, just a real quick aside. You can tell someone's training age based on the kind of the way they ask questions online. And one of them's like, one of the questions I've consistently gotten is like, so in periodization, like you say in your system, like, block periodization, like, so you go up by 5 pounds every single like week, or like 10 pounds, like, but that's unsustainable. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's a 5-week block and then you deload and then you start a little heavier than before and go up again. And they're like, you don't just keep going up? I'm like, what? It's like 600 to 650 one block, then 650 to 700 the other block, and then it's just like the same reps all the time. I'm like, oh, wow. wow. That they can think it works like that is just like, clearly you don't have a problem with results. So if you do the basics well, if you do really good techniques well, all that stuff will come. And if you really want to be in it for the long haul, you're going to do that stuff well, because the results of 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 years are really what's important to you. Mm-hmm. If you want quick results now and you don't give a shit, fuck it, just ignore everything we said. And then you can just be washed into the sport and washed right out, and no one's going to fucking notice.
Yeah. Hear that? Just ignore everything we just said.
You can get my discount code for my detox tea.
Well, his detox tea is going to actually introduce some toxins his company doesn't know about. After you drink his shit, you got to come to us, Renaissance Periodization /detox /Chad Wesley Smith discount code. Use Chad's code. It's a promotional offer.
CWS 17 gives you 6% off. So thank you for listening to The Jug Life. You can find us all kinds of places: iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and of course, thejuglife.com. And if you enjoy the podcast, write us a review on iTunes. Give us 5 stars. It's going to help us get up on the rankings, and more people can find us. Like this review from the malevolent Matthew Gursky, and this review is brought to you by the Kilos and Kielbasa lifestyle.
I love that lifestyle.
Chad Wesley Smith and the mellifluous Max Ada are a fantastic source. I don't know, he might just be making them up. Fantastic source for strength training information. Max and Chad, with their dry, sarcastic humor, don't know what you're talking about, will have you cracking up. The Jug Life podcast, the entire Juggernaut Training Systems brand, is your one-stop shop for all things lifting, nutrition, recovery, and programming. You can learn how to get strong while staying healthy. This is important to me because, in the words of the immortal Jesse Ventura, I ain't got time to bleed. Thanks, guys. And thank you to Matthew for the excellent review. So Matthew sent me an email, chad@jtsstrength.com, and we'll get something out to you for writing such a great review. Beyond that, if you like the videos and everything, we're always proud of the content that we produce alongside with the world's strongest videographer, and maybe probably most ripped now too, Shorty Sedang. So thanks, Shorty, for all the hard work there. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're interested in coaching for powerlifting, weightlifting, or super total, visit juggernautcoaching.com. If you're interested in coaching for posing in your underpants.
Yeah, or just losing fat, gaining muscle. RenaissancePeriodization.com. We have templates, we have books, so you can learn to do it yourself. You can have a computer program help you, or you can have a real live coach via email. They don't show up to your house.
Where can they find you, Mike?
RenaissancePeriodization.com, at RPStrength on Instagram, at RPDrMike on Instagram, with mostly pictures of me in very compromising half-naked positions with disgusting pictures of terrible food.
Yeah.
The worst.
Fuck you guys. I'm trying.
How much does Greg Connolly hate? Mike, just stop promoting Trifecta. Your pictures are so bad.
God damn it. The food looks great when I look at it, and then I look at the picture and I'm like, I don't know. And then I post it. I'm not artistic.
The from straight above shot where you have your non-fat cheese singles on top of the bison burgers. So it's really just a plate with 4 cheese singles on it, as far as I can tell.
Well, you just don't have any depth to your fucking understanding of what's going on. That's not my problem. You need to look deeper. It's like postmodern art. It's what you bring to the picture.
Like a squirt of ketchup over here and a squirt of mustard over here.
Where the fuck are you supposed to put the fucking squirt of? Fuck this hipster bullshit. I hate this crap. I'm not leaning into my photos. I just feel like hipster heebie-jeebies crawling on me when I do that. I can't take it.
Work the angles. It's all about the angles.
Oh, God. I feel like I'm selling myself.
I feel like you should be more comfortable with that.
That's true.
Max, how about you?
You can find me on Instagram, Max_Ada, or Facebook, or if you have questions about any of the Juggernaut coaching or programs online, email me, max@jtsstrength.com.
And I'm Chad Wesley Smith, at Chad Wesley Smith, and at Juggernaut Train on Facebook and Instagram, filling up your news feed all day. Thank you for listening. This is the Jug Life Podcast, and we'll see you next week.